שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמים בארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, שא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מרים השם.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov, wherever you might happen to be. If you're in the land of Israel, then it is already Shavua Tov. Shabbat has actually gone out here. It's 5:16 p.m. here in Israel. If you're listening from other places, such as Europe or the United States, then you are still in the middle of Shabbat, where you are. So, and we have a nice, interesting study, I think, ahead, and I hope you will enjoy it. As always, feel free to comment, to ask questions, to get involved. The best way to get involved is to come onto the StreamYard link. There, you don't only have to chat, you can actually come on and say stuff, say things if you want to, but if you don't want to do that, then you're fine on the YouTube and on the Facebook link. And welcome all. Shalom. I see a lot of regulars here. Shalom Tsuri, 9:15 a.m. Central Time. Very nice. Shabbat Shalom. And welcome Antoinette. Tony, I think, is here as well. And some other friends. I'm sure some others will be joining us. So I'll start with my usual announcements. So the usual announcements are, we are starting a live in-person Karaite community here in Israel. World Alliance of Qara'im community here in Golan Heights. We have a lot of plans. We want to build a school, a yeshiva for adults, and also eventually a school for children. We want to have regular Torah studies. We want to have regular communal events, whether it's meals together, trips together, learning together. And I've always seen a community as kind of an extended family. Looking after each other, taking care of each other, making sure we are all, making sure that we are all, taken care of in this far away land from where a lot of us came from, and yeah, so that's the plans for the community. So the community is, I'm living in the Golan Heights, in the city known as Katsrin, in the Golan Heights, sometimes called the capital of the Golan Heights. And that's where we're starting a beautiful place to start a community. It's absolutely gorgeous up here in the Golan Heights. To me, it's the most beautiful place in the land of Israel. There are forests up here, there are mountains up here, there's snow up here in the wintertime. There's Mount Hermon, not too far away. There's the Sea of Galilee, not too far away. The Sea of Galilee is about a 20-minute drive from here. I go there almost every day. I take my car in the afternoon, and I like to take a drive down there. I have a couple of regular places that I go to. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to live, no matter what your stage in life is. And so come one, come all. At this point, as I've mentioned many times, the World Alliance of Qara'im, we're not in the position where we can help out with the details of Aliyah, meaning of becoming a citizen or a resident of Israel. That you'll have to figure out on your own. I can give you some advice, and I can talk to you about it. I can't go through that process. But if you are able to make Aliyah to Israel, if you're able to have Israeli citizenship, or if you already live in the land of Israel, then yes, we are gathering. We are starting to gather here in the Golan Heights in the city of Katzrin to start our first World Alliance of Qara'im community, which will be very different, certainly from the rabbinite or the rabbinical communities, that goes without saying, and which will be different from the standard or quote unquote Egyptian Karaite communities, mainly which are mainly concentrated in the center and especially the south of the country. So they tend to be in some more of the what's called the development cities or the development towns of the center and the south. Their headquarters is in Ramla, which is kind of I don't know if you call it a suburb, a sister city. It's a place that's not far from Tel Aviv, and then they have synagogues scattered out. I guess really mostly the south of Ramla for the most part, and they have a couple of yeshuvim. So we're going to start up our own World Alliance, or we are starting up our own World Alliance of Qara'im community, and it's going to be very different. It's going to be a lot of study. There's going to be a lot of communal music, getting together for music, for meals, for talks, for trips, for communal prayer, which will be very different from the standard communal prayer you would see even in the Egyptian Karaite synagogues. It's going to be much less structured and much more open to prayer from the heart, people sharing what they want to share, learning together, singing together, all of this kind of stuff. I have a lot of ideas which I've been carrying with me for, well, not just years, for decades, and we're making it happen now. So if you have any questions about that, please contact me privately. In the meantime, you can sign up to become a member of links have been posted on the description, but we're doing it through Patreon. So if you become a member of the World Alliance of Qara'im, which costs, I've mentioned this in the last couple of talks, and I'm not going to harp on it here. It costs a small amount of money per month. We need to raise it. We need to have a budget if we want to be a serious organization, and therefore we're hoping and expecting that anyone who gets value and who wants to support our mission will put their money where their mouth is and help us out to build this this community. So let me post the link here. I'll just post it very briefly. And here we go. Just post this whole thing. Let's do it right here. Okay, so you can see the comments. I'll show it very briefly. There we go. Okay, so we encourage you to become a member of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and then you'll have specific special privileges as a member. You'll have access to the members-only WhatsApp group where we have very interesting discussions. We're going to be doing regular studies for members of the World Alliance of Qara'im, Torah studies, which will be Zoom meetings for the most part, and there'll be much more kind of freestyle. People can come in and ask questions and express their thoughts. They can ask questions. It'll be kind of an open forum, like a Q&A kind of format, and also some more formal studies based on the time of the year. And so that is the story with that. Let me actually just get rid of this. Okay, we'll leave it. Okay, so those are the announcements. And before we get started, does anyone have any questions, or does anyone have any comments? Just open up the window a little bit here. It's a little bit chilly. Any questions or any comments before we get started? Going once, going twice. Okay, if not, then let's get going. I'll just leave that link on the bottom for now, in case anyone didn't get a chance to copy it down. Just the link itself. And there we go. And I think I could do that work. Oops. And let's go back to comments. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in today's study is we're going to talk about the book of Malachi. Malachi has come up a number of times lately. I was discussing with somebody just the other day. And in addition, about 2 weeks ago when I was in Jerusalem, when I was in Yerushalayim, I visited a place called the Tomb of the Prophets. The Tomb of the Prophets is on the Mount of Olives. The Mount of Olives is an absolutely fascinating place. I highly recommend visiting the Mount of Olives if you are ever in Jerusalem. I recommend starting up at the hotel known as the Seven Arches Hotel, which I've stayed in on campus. It's owned by Arabs. It's actually owned by the Crown of Jordan, but I haven't had any problems there as a Jew. They've been very friendly to me and very welcome, very friendly and very welcoming, as a matter of fact. And you will get from this hotel, from the Seven Arches Hotel, you will get one of the most spectacular views of the old city of Jerusalem you could ever possibly imagine to get. You'll see down, you'll be looking down towards the west, and so you'll see the eastern wall of the Temple Mount Plaza, the retaining wall, the eastern retaining wall of the Temple Mount. This retaining wall was built by Herod during his reign, approximately around, I can't remember the exact year, around 20 CE, if I'm not mistaken, or around the year 0, more or less during the time of the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth, and it would always be a good time to point out here. In no way, shape, or form a Christian or a Christian messianic or anything like that. And whenever I do mention Jesus, it is for historical purposes only. I've mentioned that many times, but for those who know the Karaite world, they'll understand why it's important for me to 100% point that out. So if you're ever in Yerushalayim, I highly recommend visiting the Mount of Olives. There are many, many different places to see up there. And one of the places is the so-called Tomb of the Prophets, which does not contain the tombs of any of the prophets. As a bunch of sites around Jerusalem and around Israel, it basically grew up as a legend or perhaps a tourist trap in the Middle Ages. It's first mentioned by Arab historians. It was very common for Muslim historians and even Jewish historians, and I'm sure other historians as well, travel around and then to document their travels. So Shabbat Shalom from Missouri. And so this Tomb of the Patriarchs is mentioned in the annals of one of these medieval Arab traveling historians who quotes quote unquote Jewish tradition that that Malachi and for some reason it's escaping me. Let me just look it up. Tomb of the Prophets. Give me 1 second here. Haggai and Malachi are supposedly buried there, according to this Jewish tradition. Well, the fact of the matter is they're not buried there. Archaeology has shown that they're not buried there, but it is an interesting place to visit. And as the very nice man who was kind of the tour guide of the place mentioned on a number of occasions, it's a place to go and venerate those prophets, to remember them and to think about and perhaps even to learn their words. So in honor of that, by the way, just as another example, there's something called David's Tomb. If you come to the old city of Jerusalem, right outside the old city walls, right outside Zion Gate, is Mount Zion. Mount Zion is a separate mountain. It's not part of the same mountain on which the Temple Mount is found. It's kind of right next to it. It's called Mount Zion in modern days. And there you will find something called the Tomb of David, which of course has absolutely nothing to do with the Tomb of David, because it states explicitly, and we read this actually last week, or we read the chapters last week at the beginning of the first book of Kings. It states explicitly that when David died, he was buried in the city of David. The city of David is down below. It's to the, let me get my geography straight here in my mind. I guess it would be to the south of Mount Zion. So Mount Zion and the current old city of Jerusalem are up above. They're kind of to the north of the city of David, and then you have to go down. And if you ever come to Jerusalem, you'll know you literally have to go down. You go past the Western Wall area, and you go out to the road there, and then you cross, and there's something called the Givati parking lot or excavation area. They're excavating there. Now, down below it is the ancient city of David. This is where David built his city. This was the original Jebusite city that was conquered by David's head of army. We spoke about him last week. Yoav ben Suruyah. We know that Suruyah was David's sister, and we know that Yoav was David's nephew. We spoke about that last week. Yoav was a bad dude, and he killed a number of innocent men, including Avner ben Ner, during the battle between the house of Saul and the house of David. And I'm sorry, it was actually before when that happened. But with Avner ben Ner, yes, he killed Avner ben Ner during that battle. And because to take revenge on the fact that Avner ben Ner had killed Yoav ben Suruyah's brother Asahel, because Asahel was chasing after Avner. Avner gave him multiple warnings, and Asahel would not turn aside, so Avner had no choice but to protect his life, and thrust him through with the back of a spear. So anyway, we spoke about this last week. We're not getting to it again now. But the bottom line is, if you are ever in Jerusalem, then you'll know that the city of David is down below the Temple Mount and is down below Mount Zion, and that is the area in which David is buried. They've excavated there what they believe, or at least according to some archaeologists, most famous Eilat Mazar, who passed away a couple of years ago. They've excavated what they believe was the palace that was built there by Solomon, not by David. And a bunch of other very, very interesting things. So we spoke about it last week. Okay, at any rate, let's get into the book of Malachi. And let me share the screen appropriately, and we can start talking about it. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, you should be able to see it now. Let's get rid of this. And let's put this up. Okay, that works. And we're gonna dig into the book of Malachi. So let's get a little bit of background about who is this guy Malachi. We'll turn to the only rabbi I really trust, Rabbi Wikipedia. Background. So the book of Malachi, messenger. Malach is a messenger. From the same word as milacha, which we've spoken about many times before. Milacha is what you're not supposed to do on Shabbat. And malach is a messenger. Okay, so it's the last book of the Nevi'im in the Tanakh, right? So Tanakh stands for Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. Torah, we know what that means. It means instruction. Nevi'im means the prophets, and Navi is a prophet. And Ketuvim means the writings from the root katav, which means write. Okay, and in the order of the canon of the Hebrew canon, Malachi is the last book of that second part of the Nevi'im. Then you go on to the writings. The writings include books such as Job, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, Song of Songs, and Ruth, Esther. Okay, so, and it's the final book of the 12 minor prophets. So we have the four major prophets. Who are the four major prophets? Anybody who can name the four major prophets? Type it in and you will win a free. Thank you. The four major prophets are who? Well, we've got Jeremiah. We've got Isaiah. I'm sorry, the three major prophets. We got Jeremiah, we've got Isaiah, and we've got Ezekiel, right? Those are the three major prophets. Exactly. I'm sorry, I said four. I meant three. Right? So, and these are the 12 minor prophets. Minor not because they're less important, but just because their writings are less voluminous. They're less voluminous. They're short books for the most part. Okay, there's some books. There's one book that's even only one chapter. That's Obadiah. Okay, in Christian traditions, we can skip the Christian traditions. So the author of the text may or may have not been an eponymous figure named Malachi. In other words, so there may have not actually been an actual guy, an actual dude named Malachi. And why do people think so? We're going to see it in the text where the word Malachi is used not as a proper name, but as an improper noun. And Malachi, remember we said Malach just means an angel. So Malachi, or a messenger. So Malachi means my messenger. So it's possible that when it's speaking about Malachi, it's just speaking about, it's using an improper noun. In other words, not referring to the name of the person, but just saying that this is my messenger who's giving this message without giving the person's actual name. Okay. While often regarded as a proper name, the meaning of the word is simply my messenger in the Hebrew language, and the Septuagint renders it as his messenger. During the time the text was written, it was not used as a personal name. Well, forget the Talmud. Blah, blah, blah. Oldest surviving manuscripts. We can go a little bit into this. The oldest surviving Hebrew manuscripts containing some or all this book are found in the Masoretic texts. We've spoken about the Masoretic texts many times, which include the Codex Karaites, the Cairo Codex, the Petersburg, which I think is referring to the Leningrad Codex, the Aleppo Codex. No, this is the Codex Leningradensis. Okay, so these are all Masoretic texts, and the dates are given here: 895, 916, etc. Fragments containing parts of this book were also found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. A translation of the Hebrew Bible into Koine Greek, known as the Septuagint, right? The Septuagint is a translation of much of the Old Testament, all of the Old Testament into Greek, and etc. Okay, let's read a little bit here. The identity of the author of the book of Malachi is uncertain, although it has been suggested that the author may have been Levitical, and we'll see why when we look into the book, which has 3 chapters, by the way. So there is a lot of calling out to the Levites and to the Kohanim in the book. Due to the similarities between Malachi's and Ezra's emphasis on forbidding marriage to foreign pagan women, The Talmud and certain Targums identify Ezra as the author of Malachi. That's probably a bunch of baloney. This is a traditional Jews view held by most Jews and some Christians. It doesn't make sense because we have the writings of Ezra, and the writings of Ezra are very, very different from this book of Malachi. We can see this book of Malachi is clearly, the demeanor of it, the language it's clearly in the tradition of the prophets, and Ezra was not a prophet. Okay. Let's go ahead here. If the tradition that Ezra wrote under the name Malachi is correct, and he was likely buried in the tomb of the prophets, the traditional resting place of Malachi, Haggai, and Zechariah. So it already says this is false. That Malachi, according to archaeological findings, is not buried in that cave of the patriarch of cave of the prophets that's up on the Mount of Olives. And let's just skip ahead a little bit. The book of Malachi contains a few historical details. Let's check in, see what's going on here. Correct. That is correct. Interesting. So Malachi might not actually be the name of the prophet, but referring to the writer as simply a messenger of God. Yes, that's true. And we will see in the book of Malachi where clearly the word Malachi is used in that sense. However, that doesn't prove that there wasn't also a person named Malachi writing this book. Why? Because that could be a play on words. The Torah loves plays on words, and so even though the word Malachi has many of the names of the prophets, right? Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, okay, means something. Yirmi Ahu or Yirmiyahu means Yahweh will lift me up. Zechariah means Yah remembered me. Zechariah. Okay, so the names in biblical Hebrew usually have some kind of meaning, and so Malachi could be the actual name of the person that wrote this book, and at the same time, as a play on words, the word Malachi, my messenger, can be used in a book in the book to mean just my messenger in the general sense. In that case, referring to Malachi. So it could be play on words. So it's not conclusive. A clue as to its dating lies in the author's use of a loaned word from Aramaic for governor, pachat, and we'll see this word. When Malachi asks the question, or dares the Israelites essentially to bring their less than perfect sacrifices to their governor and see what happens. This indicates a post-Babylonian exile date of composition after 538 BCE. Based on the use of this term and the fact that Judah had a king before the exile. Additionally, since the same verse references the rebuilt temple in Jerusalem, the book must have been written after 515 BCE during the Second Temple period. Okay, so the Second Temple was built after the return of the Israelites, some of the Israelites from Babylon. The author of the book of Sirach is in the Apocrypha, which comes chronologically after the Tanach, written in the early 2nd century BC, apparently knew of Malachi. Because of the development of themes in the book of Malachi, most scholars assign it to a position after the book of Haggai and the book of Zechariah, close to the time when Ezra and Nehemiah came to Jerusalem in 445 BCE. Okay. In aim, the book of Malachi was written to correct what the author saw as the lax religious and social behavior of the Israelites, particularly the priests. So there is a focus on the priests, on the Kohanim, and on the Levites in post-exilic Jerusalem. Although the prophets urged the people of Judah and Israel to see their exiles punishment for failing to uphold their covenant with God, it was not long after they had been returned to the land, the Second Temple built and proper worship restored, that the people's commitment to their God began to wane once again. It was in this context that the prophet, commonly referred to Malachi, delivered his prophecy. Okay. Now we could just read paragraphs very quickly. In 1:2, Malachi portrays the people of Israel as questioning God's love for them. The book illustrates the severity of the situation that Malachi addresses, as does dialectical style with which Malachi confronts his audience. And we'll see that dialectical style. He'll ask them questions, rhetorical questions, and then give them answers or accusations. Malachi accuses his audience of failing to respect God as God deserves. One way this disrespect manifests itself is through the substandard sacrifices that Malachi claims the priests offer. While God demands animals that are with blemish, okay, I don't want to give away the punchlines here. In 2:1, Malachi states that Yahweh Shabbatot, Yahweh Sibaoth is sending a curse on the priests who have not honored him with appropriate animal sacrifices. In 2:10, Malachi addresses the issue of divorce. We'll get to that. And so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to dig in now in the Hebrew to the book of Malachi. We will use as our aid Robert Alter, as I often use. It's a very good commentary. And no, I'm not a Robert Alter fanboy. I mean, I don't consider his commentary to be perfect. There are times I disagree with it, but I think it's a very, very good translation and commentary. It's a very good base. It's a very good basis to start the conversation. Okay, so if you follow along with me, we're now going to go into the book of Malachi. We're going to start in the Hebrew, and I suggest that if you wish, that you follow along in the English or whatever language you want, like let's say Serbian or something like that. Inside joke that I always use. So follow along, and let's see what Malachi has to say to the people of Israel. Okay. So we are in Malachi chapter 1, verse 1. So the burden, Masa means nasa means to lift up, and a masa is something that's hard to lift up, usually translated as burden. Okay, the burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel, Biyad Malachi. So this is the burden. Often, what the prophets are about to say is called it's called a burden. Okay, burden of the word of Yahweh. The implication being that this is not easy stuff to say, both on a level of having to kind of call out, kind of have to chastise the nation, and also, as we see many times with the prophets, it gets them in trouble. It gets them in trouble. They're rejected. They're sometimes attacked and beaten, like Jeremiah is attacked, beaten, and thrown in a dungeon. So it's a burden. It's not an easy thing to say. It's like walking up to I don't know. It's like walking up to a gang in the street that's making noise and asking them to turn down the music. Right? We all know where that can go. So it's a burden to have to give the word of Yahweh to Israel. At any rate, it says Biyad Malachi, through the hand of Malachi. Here we have Malachi. We will leave the question open: is this his proper name? Is his name Malachi? Or does this mean my messenger? Okay, and let's see, the NIV translates it as Malachi, and here they have a little footnote. Malachi means my messenger, right? So they're going with the idea that the name means Malachi. I don't want to give my opinion yet. Maybe I will as we go on. Okay, so we're in verse 2. Ahafti etchem amar Yahweh. I loved you. I've loved you. This is Yahweh speaking to Israel. Okay. And you answered, why do you love us? Okay, you're doubting. Israel is doubting God's love for them. Okay, in this, again, this is a dialectic. This is a back and forth between God and Israel, right? God playing both parts, or the words of Malachi playing both parts in this case. Get a little commentary here from Robert Alter. So Malachi, in contrast to many other prophets, no father's name is given and no indication of the years of his prophecy is offered. This suppression of identifying context lends support to the inference that Malachi is not an actual name, but a common noun designating a role, my messenger. Okay, so we've already spoken about that a bunch of times. Let me just check and see if there are any comments. Let's see if everything's okay here. Okay, is there any questions? Pop them in there. Okay. So why do you love us? Why have you loved us? Hello, Esau, Yaakov, Ne'um Yahweh, Ohav et Yaakov. Is not Esav, Yaakov's brother, declares Yahweh, but I have loved. Yaakov is Jacob, of course. Is not Esav, Jacob's brother, declares Yahweh, but I've loved Jacob. Verse 3. Let's go to the middle of the verse. Okay. What Esau saneti, but I hated Esau. And we see this parallelism. Parallelism is very important literary style. Ohavet Yaakov, I loved Yaakov, Jacob. Why Esav saneti, but Esav I hated. Right. So these two are in parallel with each other, even though they're in two verses. They're actually, this is kind of its own verse in a certain sense, because here we have the etnach, we have the semicolon. Okay. And Esav I hated. So there's a contrast that Malachi is drawing between Israel, between Jacob, and between Esau. Okay, this raises a lot of questions. How can Yahweh, how can God hate his own children that he created? Well, you know what? You can get to that point. He hated them so much. We had a kind of get together in Katsarin here, and I read a portion from a book that I'm working on, which I'll talk about more when the time comes. And we see that Yahweh hated his children so much that he destroyed them, all of them, except one, in a flood. So you can piss off your father enough that he'll say, you know what, I brought you into this world, and damn it, I'm going to take you out of this world. And as I said in my talk that I gave, or this excerpt, this reading from my book that I gave here in Cut Stream, there could come a time when we see examples. You could see, let's say, non-modern Western cultures, or even non-Western cultures embedded in Western cultures, such as the mafia, is the example I gave. You see there's honor killings in Muslim culture, and other examples where parents become so disappointed and so dejected by the betrayal of their own children that they go ahead and kill them. And if they don't, they're probably, for everyone that actually does it, there are probably 100 times more who think about it and say, you know what, I could get away with it. I don't know. This kid is out of control. We even have a commandment in the Torah that if you have a rebellious child who just cannot be corrected, then the parents can bring him to the city gates and to the elders, and the elders can, and the judge or the elders can determine that this child is to be put to death. So let's not pretend the Torah is some kind of modern, liberal, Western document. It's not. It's far from it. You need to think of it more as like a mafia, a good mafia, but kind of a mafia mentality. I watch this guy on YouTube all the time. I've been watching him for a number of years, named Michael Francesi. Michael Francesi, I think he pronounces his name. Michael Francesi, actually, I think he pronounces his name. Former captain in the mafia, and he talks about life in the mafia, and a lot of it makes sense. No effing around there. You know what I mean? Any rate, let's not go down that route. But we see that if in the real world, parents can get to the point, or maybe fathers more than mothers, the love that a mother has for her child is kind of unquenchable and unquestionable and unconditional. But a father who often is the one, or is supposed to be the one, who does justice in the house, can actually get to the point where he hates his own children. And we see that right here. Okay, Esav was a scumbag in many ways. He was an absolute scumbag. He tried to kill his own brother Yaakov, right? Yaakov had to run away to Uncle Lavan to escape his own brother trying to kill him. So he was not a good guy. He was definitely not following the way of Yahweh. And so here it says that Yahweh hated him. And so the sense of Esav, who were the Edomites. Okay, Wasim et Harav Shmama, I will turn his mountains into a desolation, or I'll make his mountains desolate. So where is Idumea? It's basically, or Edomite territory. It's basically to the east of Israel, mostly I think southern Jordan and northern Saudi Arabia. I'd have to look on a map to see where the actual borders are. Okay, with Nahlato li Tanot Midbar. So I'll turn his mountains into desolation, make his mountains desolate, and his inheritance, meaning his land inheritance, Nachala, invariably means land inheritance. Okay, I'll turn his land inheritance, meaning the land that I gave him. What it says explicitly, the land that Yahweh gave to the descendants of Esav, and that's Mount Seir. That's the Edomite territory to the east of Israel. Okay, to the jackals of the. So basically, he's going to turn his land into a wasteland, is what he's saying. Okay, look at the map today of the Middle East. We have something. That's the one fear I have, says Suri, not to piss off the Almighty One and not to whore out with other gods. And my understanding of those 2 points are not negotiable. Correct. I think you're doing an okay job, although, who am I to judge that you need to work that out with Yahweh? But you seem like a pretty okay guy to me. All right. Okay. So that's it. And we're going to turn Esav's territory into a wasteland. Okay. Verse 4. Let's go to the semicolon. That's right there. That's this little, as I always point out, that little symbol there. This etnach, this little wishbone looking symbol, is kind of the semicolon. Almost all verses in the Tanakh are divided into 2 subverses, separated by nach. Okay? Nach. Kitomar Edom, Rushashnu, Winashuv, Nivne, Nivne, Haravot, stop right there. It's also kind of a semicolon. If Edom once again is the descendants of Esav, if Esav should say, Rushashnu, we've been brought to poverty, we've been destroyed, we've been made destitute, but we'll return and we'll build up our ruins, our wasteland, our ruins. Okay, so if Esav should say, yeah, we know this is what Yahweh did to us. He destroyed our land. He turned our land into a wasteland. But we're going to return. We're going to come back and we're going to build. We're going to build back better. So says Yahweh of hosts. Yahweh is surrounded by his hosts, his multitudes of angels. We see this explicitly, for instance, in the book of Ezekiel, the beginning of the book of Ezekiel. So says Yahweh of hosts. They may build, but I will destroy. I will destroy it. Whatever they build, yeah, if they want to come back and build back better, I'll just destroy it again. They think they're going to build, but I'm going to destroy it. But I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to destroy it. Okay? So in other words, there's no hope. Esav is perpetually hated by Yahweh. We karu lahem gvul risha, and or they will be called and they will be called Gvul Risha, the border of evil. In other words, they represent because Edom did border on Israel, so they represent the border between good and evil. There's a contrast, there's a distinction being made between Israel, the people of Israel, who Yahweh loves, and his land, which is green and fertile, part of the fertile crescent, and this border that separates good from evil. On the other side of the border is Edom, out to the east in the desert, in the desolation, not a place that's hospitable to growth, right? If you look at the Middle East from space, you'll see the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent goes along the coast, starting from, I guess, around the Nile River. I guess it might include, not quite, so around around the area of Gaza, up the coast, all the way to Turkey, at the sources of the Euphrates and the Tigris, and then down the Euphrates and the Tigris, down into the Persian Gulf. That's the Fertile Crescent. Okay, so Israel's is part of the Fertile Crescent, and if you look at Israel from space, you'll see how green it is, and you'll see the lands that are around Israel are desolate. Okay, so they will be called the border of evil. Ha'am asher za'am Yahweh ad olam, and the people, the nation, upon who Yahweh, or towards whom Yahweh was furious for eternity. In other words, until the end of days, ad olam, forever and ever. Okay, so Yahweh is not about to be making up with Edom, at least not in this prophecy. Yahweh hates Edom, destroyed, made their land a desolation. Even if they say we're going to come back and build back better, Yahweh is not going to allow that to happen. He's going to keep their land as a desolation, and he's furious at them until the end of time, until the end of days. End of time, really. Days is a different meaning. Verse 5. So we're in Malachi chapter 1, verse 5. Let me just check in for any comments and stuff. Okay, so verse 5, chapter 1, verse 5. And your eyes shall see this. Who's Malachi speaking to? He's speaking to the Israelites. Why is it important? Or what is the relevance of this statement? Your eyes shall see it. Because remember how this paragraph started. Israel is doubting the love, is doubting Yahweh's love for them. Israel is saying, why do you love us? Yahweh is that really how the prophecy starts out. I have loved you, or I love you, says Yahweh. But why do you love us? Or how do we know that you love us? And then Yahweh answers. He says, look at the contrast. I'm paraphrasing here. Look at the contrast between you, the nation that I love, the people that I love, Israel, and Esav, Edom, the people that I hate. Their land is a wasteland. It's a desert. It's a dry wasteland, and it will always remain so. Even if they want to come build it back up, I won't let them. I will keep it in a state of desolation. And this will be until the end of time, and your eyes will see it. You'll see this with your own eyes. That's the answer to the question. That's the answer to this question right here. How do we know that you love us? You'll see it with your eyes. Right. Your eyes shall see it. What shall your eyes see? Your eyes shall see that the contrast between the land of Edom, the land of Esav, what I do to a nation that I hate, compared to what I've done, what I will do and have done for you, giving you a beautiful land, an Eretz Tzvi, a land of beauty, full of water courses and mountains and rivers, a place which is fertile, and anyone who's ever visited the land of Israel knows just how beautiful it is. People are often awestruck when they see just how beautiful the land is. And I must say that where I live here in the Golan Heights, it's spectacular. It's breathtaking. This whole area, all of northern Israel, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's really spectacular. So your eyes will see. You will see it with your own eyes, and then you will see the difference between a nation that I hate, what I do to them, and a nation that I love. That's the answer. Okay? Watem tomru And then you shall say, Yirdal Yahweh mi'al gvul Yisrael. Yahweh has shown his greatness, or is considered great, beyond the borders of Israel. Right? Why beyond the borders of Israel? Because he's kept the land of Edom, he's kept the land of Esau as a desolation, as a shmama. That word shmama means a desolation, a dry wasteland. Okay, so Yahweh doesn't only act for Israel in Israel, he acts beyond the borders of Israel. He's a God that has effect on the entire world, that determines what happens throughout the entire world. But in this specific case, it's speaking about what he will do to the land of Edom, what he will do to the land of the Edomites, the land of the descendants of Esau. And that will be proof, because he's kept that land inheritance as a desolation. That will be proof that Yahweh's greatness extends beyond just the borders of Israel. Okay? All right, so that's the end of the first, it's not technically a paragraph, because I don't see a samech or a peh, but the end of the first prophecy. Okay, we'll go on some more. Any questions, any comments so far? Show comments on stage. What happens if I do that? Oh, I see. Oh, I got it. Let's see. Should I leave that on? I think it's a bit... אהלן,
לא,
רחל.
אנחנו
מה שלומך?
נוסעים.
אתם נוסעים עכשיו?
אנחנו נוסעים עכשיו, אנחנו נחזור בשלום, בריאים, חזקים.
מה אתם חוזרים?
יום שני.
יום שני?
או מחר בערב או יום שני.
אוקיי, וזה בקשר למה?
ניתוח של דת.
זה מחר הניתוח של דנציג
הם באחריותך מחר בבוקר. חבר'ה, לביא שוהם, רחל לא תהיה ב7:30 בבוקר, אבא פה.
בסדר, ניתן לנו אוכל, אין שום בעיה.
אנחנו נהיה איתך בקשר.
לביא, תזכיר לי.
אני משאירה את הדלת פתוחה מפה.
אוקיי, בסדר.
אם דיירים או משהו שיעלו.
בסדר.
המפתח בארון חשמל אני של הבית, אני משאירה משהו.
רגע, לא, רגע.
בכניסה לבית יש ארון חשמל, אני משאירה שם את המפתח של הבית.
רגע, איפה בדיוק? בכניסה, איפה שאני נכנס בדרך כלל?
כן, לא, בכניסה הראשית.
בכניסה הראשית?
שלנו.
יש שם מפתח?
יש ארון חשמל, אני שמה את המפתח שם.
אבל למה אני צריך את ה...
כי אני יוצאת, אני שמה אותה. אם אתה צריך משהו מהבית או משהו, אז...
אבל פה יהיה פתוח?
פה פתוח אני משאירה.
אבל כל שאר הבית יהיה...
סגור.
סגור, הבנתי. אוקיי, לא יהיה. צריך אבל בסדר, טוב. כן, ועוד משהו אחר שאני צריך לדעת? כן, בטח, 100% אם אתם צריכים משהו.
כן, אנחנו נתקשר.
100%, בסדר.
יאללה חבר'ה, ביי.
טוב.
ביי חבר'ה.
טוב.
איזה חיים יש לכם. איפה זכיתם בעולם?
חיים כמו חתולים מלכים.
תקשיב, זה חיים, באמת, אלימלך. לא כל יום יש חיים כאלה.
מה לעשות? מה לעשות? מגיע להם. חתולים טובים. כן, בסדר. אוקיי.
אני החזקתי מעמד 10 חודשים.
כן. טוב, נסיעה טובה, ואני מקווה שהכל יצא טוב. 100%. אוקיי, בסדר, כן, תתקשרי אליי. אוקיי. All right. Okay, so getting back to this, to Malachi. That was my wonderful landlady, Rachel, very, very special person. The woman cannot stop cooking for me. It's someone please tell her to stop cooking for me. I can't. Her husband Zav says anyone who comes here ends up leaving at twice the size when they came. She's an amazing cook, and she's a very, very special woman. Okay, so at any rate. And her food is, oh God, it's delicious. Okay, so getting back to Malachi. So we're now going to start. Any questions, any comments so far, first of all? Okay, so let's go on. Okay. And we won't do the entire book of Malachi. We'll do maybe the first chapter. We'll see. Because we do want to get on to Leviticus chapter 23. So we're in verse 6, and now we start his second prophecy, or his second dialectic, his second back and forth with Israel, right? So the first one has a nice conclusion, okay? It's a dialectic. A dialectic is a back and right? It's a dialect, okay? Started with, I love you, Israel. Israel says, Israel doubts it, and then Malachi goes on on a long speech, not a long speech, on a speech about proof that Israel is loved by Yahweh by contrasting it with how Yahweh thinks about Edom. And then that's closed up. You will see with your own eyes. That's closure. Now that will be proof that what I say, that Yahweh does indeed love you. All right, next dialectic, the next dialogue. So here Malachi comes with a complaint about Israel, a very serious complaint, okay, from Yahweh to or towards Israel. We're in verse 6. We're in chapter 1, verse 6. Okay. Ben Yichabed Av Wa'eved Adonau. And you know what, before we go on there, let's just get a couple of Robert Alters on what we read. But Esau hated, so this is going back to that first dialectic, Esau's Edom, and the bitter lingering memory of the Edomites' collaboration with the Babylonians in the destruction of Jerusalem informs these lines, okay? And may the Lord be great, or the Lord will be great beyond the region of Israel. This idea that God's kingship will be reverentially recognized by the nations of the earth is picked up in verse 11. Okay, that's it. That's all his commentary on that first part of the prophecy. Okay, so verse 6. Ben Yichabed Av, Wa'eved Adonau. A son honors his father, and a servant or slave his master. Statement. Just like this first dialectic started with a statement. A son honors his father, and a slave his master. Wa'im av ani aye kivodi. And if I am your father, if I am a father, where's my honor? This is Yahweh asking Israel, complaining to Israel in a sense. Lamenting is not the right word. Asking Israel. Ve'im adonimani aye morai. And if I am your master, where is my fear? Right? So this is how this dialectic opens up. Okay? Yahweh is complaining that Israel does not treat him correctly, doesn't give him the proper honor that he deserves. Whether he's a father or a master, he's both, right? He's our father, he's our master. We are his slaves. It says so many, many times throughout the Tanakh. We're called the slaves or the servants of Yahweh. We're also called the children of Yahweh, the sons of Yahweh, right? Bnei Israel. Well, that's the sons of Israel. But we're called many times the sons of his sons. So he's our father and he's our master, but we are not treating him with the proper fear and the proper respect that that a father or a master should be treated with. Okay? Amar Yahweh, says Yahweh, Tzibaot of hosts. Again, we have that here. Okay. Where is it? Amar Yahweh Tzibaot, right? That same phrase, we see that the parallelism this time across the prophecies. The Torah works in parallelisms or has contrasting phrases one next to the other deliberately, or phrases that continue the thought of the previous phrase or that parallel the thought of the previous phrase. Okay? These are different types of parallelism. They have specific technical names, which I have to think about what their technical names are. Complementary parallelism, antagonistic parallelism. I can't remember the technical names, but we see these types of that. We see that parallelism, and those are meant to be in. When I speak of those types of parallelism, those are meant to be in adjacent verses or even in adjacent subverses. But here we see another type of parallelism. We see the picking up of words and phrases and techniques, right? Because it's starting off with a rhetorical question or a statement, okay, that's going to open the conversation, open the dialogue, the dialectic. Okay. Okay. So this is directed specifically towards the Kohanim. Okay. This complaint, this dialectic, this prophecy is directed towards the Kohanim. Okay. This is to you, the priests, the Kohanim, who boz. How would you translate this into English? Disgrace, or it's a better translation than disgrace. Who all right, let's see what they have here. Show contempt for, even better. Show contempt for my name. How's Robert Alter translate it? Despise me. I like show contempt for. I think that's the best translation. Okay. ואמרתם, במה בזינו את שמך? But you say, how have we shown contempt for your name? Okay, so it's the same kind of dialectic that we saw here. Yahweh makes a statement in the first conversation with Israel. I loved you. I've loved you, says Yahweh. And Israel responds, how do we know, or what proof do we have that you've loved us? Here, Yahweh starts with a statement. A son honors his father, and a slave honors his master. And if I'm your father, where's my honor? And if I'm your slave, where's fear? Where's fear? You disgrace. You show contempt for my name. That's the opening statement. And now Israel, the Kohanim in this case, respond, and you said, how have we shown disgrace for your name? Okay, let's get into it. Now Yahweh responds. And this is something we've spoken about in last week's study and many times before. Let's check in and see if there are any comments. Okay. Verse 7. Magishim al mizbachi lechem migoal. Okay. You throw onto my altar. Mizbachi is referring to the altar of sacrifice. Throw onto my altar lechem migoal, rancid bread. Let me translate here. Food to translate, yes, okay. We'll go with bread for now on. Lechem for now. Lechem migoal, rancid bread or rancid food. And you ask, how have we, how would you translate this? How have we despised you? It's a bad translation. It's from the same word as migoal. So migoal here is disgusting or rancid. How have we disgraced you? How have we acted disgustingly towards you? Maybe that's a better translation. Let's go for a couple. How have we defiled you? Nah, I don't like that translation. Let's look at Robert Alter. Bring on my altar defiled food, and we say, how have we defiled you? Okay, I guess we can go with defiled. Good enough. In modern Hebrew, would say go nefesh. Like if let's say I don't know, you're eating a falafel, and someone spits in your falafel, or someone spits in your falafel, and then you eat it anyway. Then Israelis will say go al nefesh. It's disgusting, you know. So migo al v'matam. I don't know where I thought of that example from. I have a very active imagination today. No, that never happened to me. Okay, at any rate, all right, we'll go with defiled. No, I don't like defiled. You know, just rancid. Okay, so how have we disgraced you, or how have we disgusted you? How have we done disgusting things towards you? Okay. But again, nucha, Em arachem shulchan Yahweh nivzehu. When you say that the table of Yahweh is disgraced, okay? Let's get a Robert Alter on that just to get it a little bit more coherent. Hey, show. No. Okay. So when you say the Lord's table is despised, nivzeh, it's the same word that we saw earlier. Bozeh shmi. Oops, I just clicked on that mistake. Show. It's not a scratching post. Okay, bozeh shmi. Bozeh, disgraced my name, or despised my name. And here nivzeh, it's the same root. Okay, you say that my table, the table of Yahweh, is disgraced. Is a disgrace. Okay, and how do you say that, or how do you show it? Hey, Shosho, you're one step away from getting kicked right out of this place. You hear me, little boy? I'm telling you, this is your final warning, little boy. Got some pretty active cats in here. Hey, what did I just tell you? Okay, verse 8. V'chi tagishun iwer lizboach ein ra. So when you sacrifice blind animals, or when you oh my God, I have to throw the cat out. 1 second. Ein ra. So when you bring forth blind animals as sacrifices, or to sacrifice them, ein ra, is that not evil? V'chi tagishu piseach v'chole ein ra. And if you sacrifice, not sacrifice, what's a better word than sacrifice? I'll just go with bring forth. If you bring forth a lame or a sick animal, isn't that evil? Right? So what do you mean? What do you mean you haven't despised my name? Yahweh is calling out the Kohanim for doing these things, for bringing disgusting sacrifices, for bringing disgusting food, meaning the food of God, the lechem of Yahweh, the food of Yahweh is the sacrifices, quote unquote, right? He doesn't literally eat them, we know that, but that's considered his food. That's the food that we give to him. That's a long story in and of itself. It's very different from when I was back in New York. I would go sometimes to this Hindu temple, Shosho, where they had the statues of the gods there, Vishnu and whatever, and they would put food before him. They would put food before these statues, okay? And I don't know if they literally believed that the gods ate this food, but here you're putting food before a statue of a god, of an idol, literally an idol that was made out of, at least it was painted over in gold. I don't know if it was pure gold, probably. This was a Hindu temple in Queens, New York. I think it's one of the largest Hindu temples in New York City, maybe the largest Hindu temple in New York City. At any rate, the way we bring food, quote unquote, to our God is completely different. We don't place it before him, okay? We give it to the Kohanim, they sacrifice it, and it's either burnt completely or they take part of it, or the person who brings the food takes part of it. So there's no implication anywhere that our God is eating the food. It's just symbolically showing, it's our way of showing that we remember him, that we want to say, that we want to honor him by bringing him presents, right? We live in the physical world, so what presents can we bring? We have to bring him something physical, but he does not. Hey, what is going? Show. That's it. You're going out for a while. No. You were very silly. You were being very, very silly today. Go. Let your energy out for a while. We'll come back here, sweetie. Come. You want to go out too? Okay, go. All right. Cat's out. Anyway, that's a long discussion. We won't get into it now. Okay. So, what do you mean? How have you despised? How have you disgraced my table? You're bringing these sacrifices, which are sick and lame and blind. Explicit in the Torah not to do so. Okay. Explicit. Remember, we bring Yahweh the best, and we bring him the first. Okay? Or if we're not bringing in the first, if it's not a first fruits offering, then we bring in the best. We bring in the finest of the flock, not the worst of the flock, not the leftovers. Okay? Okay. Let me check in. Yeah. Okay. So הקריבהו נא לפתחך. Let's stop right there. Go bring those sacrifices to the governor. Right? We mentioned that when we were talking about the book of Malachi. We mentioned that this is a word that's considered to be an Aramaic word and was used there for to date the writing of the book of Malachi to the early Second Temple period, right? So go bring those sacrifices to your governor. Is he gonna consider them? Is he gonna want them? Or is he gonna literally lift up your face, but is he gonna grant you favor? You wouldn't take those sacrifices, you wouldn't give those as gifts to the governor. You wouldn't take those sacrifices and give them to the governor. He'll put you in jail. He'll kill you. If you brought your governor these lame and sick and blind sacrifices, what do you think his reaction would be? But you have the nerve to bring them to me? That's Yahweh's complaint to Israel. So Yahweh's answering, right? Yahweh came with a complaint to Israel. If I am your father, where is my honor? If I am your master, where is my fear? What do you mean? You, the Kohanim, have disgraced my name. What do you mean we've disgraced your name? How have we disgraced your name? And then Yahweh answers. So it's a back and forth. It's a dialectic. It's a dialogue. Okay? What do you mean, how have you disgraced my name? You've brought lame, sick, and blind sacrifices and thrown them on my altar. Let's see what happens. Go take those sacrifices to your governor. Go bring to Donald Trump a rancid McDonald's hamburger and see what he does to you. You'll end up like Maduro. Right? See, Yahweh is bringing proof, or is responding to Israel's claim that they've done nothing wrong. Yeah, you're damn right. You've done something wrong. You're bringing me disgusting sacrifices. You're not giving me my proper honor as your father, as your God, as your master. That's Yahweh's response to Malachi. Verse 9. Ve'ata haluna pnei el v'yihananenu v'yihanenu. So now let's get a Robert Alter on that one. Right. So now, entreat. Halu usually is translated as entreat. In other words, pray to or reach out to or talk to, please, like to God's face, and see if He will forgive you, if He will give you reprieve, if He will be kind to you. Because this came from your own hand. In other words, the bringing of these disgusting sacrifices. Hey, you saw Mikem Banim? Amar Yahweh Tzivaot. Will He literally lift up your face, but usually translated as will He grant you favor? Says Yahweh Tzivaot. So if you're going to come beg to me to forgive you, why should I forgive you? This is your decision. This came from your own hand, these disgusting sacrifices. You think Yahweh should now give you favor? Okay. And let's see if we can get some commentary on this. Okay, so despising the prophet began by dressing, a little bit larger, by dressing the people of Israel. Now attention is focused on the priests and their abuse of the temple cult. Since the prophet, and by the way, cult, whenever it's used in this context, does not mean a cult like, whatchamacallit, the Church of, no, not the Church of, what am I thinking of? Scientology or something like that. A cult means just an organized worship of a god. Okay, since the prophet assumes that the temple service is being conducted, his own discourse would have to occur at some point after the completion of the rebuilding of the second temple around 514 BC. Okay. How have we despised your name? This articulation of prophecy through challenge and response, compared verse 2 is characteristic of Malachi. That's exactly what we said, right? It's the same dialectic that's going on that we saw earlier. Okay. Blind, sickle, such main animals are forbidden, as often the sacrifice passing off cheaply acquired beasts of the sort, while keeping the sound animals for their own consumption. Okay. And your prefect or your governor. So bring those sacrifices to your prefect. Prefect means your overlord, your governor, basically. The Hebrew word used here, pechach, is a loan word taken from the Persian. I think it also appears in the book of Esther, if I'm not mistaken. Compare the English pasha, which entered the language through a Turkish intermediary and is thus linguistic evidence of the setting of this prophecy in the Persian period. Okay. All right, let's go on. Mi gam bochem ויסגור דלתיים ולא תאירו מזבחי חינם. So who will doors so that ולא תאירו מזבחי, so that my altar should not light up for no reason. In other words, what's being said here is who's going to close the door so that no one has to see this disgrace that's coming from the altar. These sick, lame, and blind animals are being sacrificed on the altar of sacrifice. Please, someone close the door, okay, to the courtyard, to the temple, so that no one has to see this disgrace for no reason. Chinam means for no reason, okay? Let's get an NIV translation on that. That's verse 10. Oh, that one of you would shut the temple doors so that you would not light useless fires on my altar. And Robert Alter translates it as, who then among you would close double doors and not light fire on my altar in vain? Okay? So we get the idea. In other words, it's a continuation of it's disgraceful, it's disgusting. Okay? The rest of verse 10. Ainli, hefes, bochem, amar Yahweh. I have no desire towards you. I've no liking towards you people. Okay? Amar Yahweh Tzivaot. And here we have the same phrase, right? Amar Yahweh Tzivaot. This is the third time we've seen that phrase. Okay? Says Yahweh of hosts. Umincha lo etzeh, and I don't want any gifts from your hands. I don't want any sacrifices coming out of your hands. Okay? I have no desire for you. I have no liking towards you people, and I don't want any of your gifts. Okay? Take your gifts and shove it where the sun don't shine, because you're not giving me real gifts. This is not coming from the heart. You're giving me the crappy stuff and leaving the good stuff for yourself. Okay? Go to Donald Trump and go bring him a crappy gift and see what happens. Okay, like I said, you'll end up in the Brooklyn Detention Center or whatever, you know, with Bubba and Maduro as your cellmates. Okay, verse 11. Ki mimizrach shemesh v'ad mivo'o gadol shmi magoyim. Stop right there, because from where the sun, forget about where the sun don't shine. That's has to do with Bubba and Maduro. They'll work that out. But from where the sun does shine, meaning from the east. Okay, it's just a way of saying the east. Okay, literally from where the sun starts to shine, until where it returns, meaning returns to the horizon, returns figuratively speaking to the earth. Right, when it sets, it comes back towards the earth, okay, from our point of view. It's not making a scientific statement. This is from our point of view. It starts shining in the east, makes its path across the sky, and then in the evening comes back towards the earth, okay? towards the horizon. Okay, so from the far east to the far west, from where the sun shines, from where the sun rises to where the sun sets, Gadol Shmi Bagoyim, my name is great among the peoples, among the nations. The Goyim. Goyim just means a nation. Ubechol makom muktar mugash lishmi. And in every single place, and b'chol makom, in all of these places, or in every place, muktar mugash lishmi, incense is burnt, and offerings are brought or sacrificed in my name. Umincha teorah, and pure offerings, pure gifts. Mincha is a gift in this context of a sacrifice. Okay, and they're pure gifts. In other words, all over the world. Okay. My name is known from the rising of the sun, from the far east to the far west, throughout the entire world, and people all over the world, they're lighting, they're burning incense for me, to me, and they're sacrificing to me. Minchat Torah, they're giving me pure gifts, not like you Kohanim are giving me these disgusting gifts. Ki hadol Shmi Bagoyim, because my name is great among the nations. Amar Yahweh Tzvaot, says Yahweh of hosts. Okay, so this is also parallels the original dialectic, because here we saw, where is it? Here. You shall say that Yahweh is considered great beyond the borders of Israel, right? That was the first dialectic, that was the first prophecy. And we have the same idea here, that from the far east, from where the sun rises to where the sun sets, my name is great among the nations. In all of these places, incense is burnt to me, sacrifices are brought to me, and they're pure sacrifices, not like you, the Kohanim. The one place where it's not happening is with you, right here in Israel. You, the Kohanim, are bringing me these disgusting gifts, these lame and sick animals. Okay, verse 12. Watem mehalalim oto. And you are filing it. What is it? My name. You're making a fool out of me. You're not giving me the honor that I deserve as a father. You're not giving me the honor I deserve as a master. You're bringing me these disgusting sacrifices, yet out in India, maybe India's not a good example, out in, I don't know, China, maybe that's not a good, I don't know where, but in Mongolia, maybe, they're bringing me, they're sacrificing to me pure animals, good quality animals, and they're burning incense to me. Okay, but you're disgracing my name by bringing me these sick and lame animals. Be'em marchem shulchan Adonai migo'al. When you say that the table means, in this context, means the altar of sacrifice, the sacrificial altar, where the sacrifices are, onto where the sacrifices are thrown, right? Thrown upon the altar. So when you say Shulchan Adonai migo'alhu is defiled, or is disgraceful, is disgusting, you are defiling my name. Okay? But you profane it by saying the Lord's table is defiled and its food is contemptible, and you say, what a burden, and you sniff at it contemptuously. I don't think that's a good translation. Let's go for Robert Alter. So the message and the food on it is despised. You say, how tiresome, and you insult me, said the Lord of armies. Let me just see that one more time. I'm sorry, we're in verse 12. Okay, "V'marchem shulchan Adonai mego'al hu v'nivo nivzeh achlo," and its fruit, or its output, its fruit basically is despised as food. That's kind of a difficult little phrase to translate. At any rate, let's move on. Verse 13. "V'amartem hine mitla'ah." And you say this is such a burden, a weariness. They translate it as. Robert Alter translates it as 13. How tiresome. Tila'ah, matla'ah is like just a I don't want to do it kind of thing. Okay, matla'ah. It's such a burden. It's so tiresome to us. It's such a weariness. To do what? To bring the sacrifices. V'fachtem oto, amar Yahweh Tzevaot. And Robert Alter translates "Sifachtem" means you insulted me, says the Lord of Armies. NIV translates it as sniff at it. So lafiach really means to blow air. You sniff at it contemptuously. So actually, I like the NIV translation a little bit better here. Okay. You say, what a burden. Here, let's just get the whole thing in context. We'll go with the NIV. But you profane it by saying, the Lord's table is defiled and its food is contemptible. And you say, what a burden. And you sniff at it contemptuously. You kind of go, you kind of huff at it like, huh, is the implication. Okay. When you bring stolen animals and lame animals and sick animals, and you bring these gifts, these so-called gifts, you bring them as gifts, am I gonna want them? Am I gonna favor you for them? Or am I gonna receive them? Oops. Am I going to receive them from your hand? Am I going to happily receive them from your hand? Amar Yahweh, says Yahweh. And again, let's just get a Robert Alter on that one. And you bring the stolen and the lame and the sickly, and you bring the grain offering. Will I be pleased with it from your hand, said the Lord? And the NIV, when you bring injured, lame, so because literally means I don't know why they translate this. Injured here, injured, lamed, or diseased animals, and offer them a sacrifice. Should accept them from your hands, says the Lord. Okay. And this actually backs it up. Nochel means a robber, cheat, or Robert Alter translates it as schemer. Okay. We'll go with thief. A schemer actually is really good. Okay. وأرول نخل ويشبع بعذره زخار. Actually, I like thief better because it makes more sense. Okay, cursed is the thief who has, and I'm a little bit paraphrasing here because I want to get the context flowing. Cursed is the thief who has a male what? A male sheep or a male bull in his, well, eder would be a sheep, would be a flock. So it's really specific to a sheep. So arun nochel v'yesh b'adro zachar. So cursed is the thief who has a male sheep or male goat in his flock. What does that mean? You have sheep. Let's go with sheep. You have male sheep. You have sheep that you can bring. Good sheep that you can bring. You can sacrifice to me. What do? You go out and steal another sheep and you bring that to me. Instead of bringing your own from your own hard work, which you were able to do only because I blessed you and gave you this land, gave this bounty that allowed you to raise these sheep. Instead of bringing me one of those sheep to show your honor towards me, symbolically, to show that you actually remember me and you actually give me honor as your father and as your master, what do? You go steal someone else's sheep, you go steal another sheep, and you bring that one to me. Even though you have one, a very good one in your own flock that you could bring to me. You have no excuse. Maybe if you didn't have any good sheep in your flock, okay, You go out and you steal one. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not a good thing to do, but okay, it's kind of understandable. You wanted to bring me a good sheep. Okay, so you had no choice. You have only crappy sheep in your flock. You went out and stole one. I can't approve of that. It's not a good thing, but I understand what your thought process was. But here, there's nothing to understand. You have good sheep in your own flock, and yet you go out and steal someone else's sheep and bring that to me. Am I going to accept that? Is that acceptable? When Zoveach mashchat la'Adonai, and you what's the word noder in English? Oh God, I can't think of it. Like make a vow. It's a better translation than that. Make a vow or make a swear. Make a vow. So you make a vow, and you bring it as a sacrifice a blemished animal or an injured animal to God. So in other words, so what's the idea? When you make a neder is when you swear something for one reason or another. I don't know. You have a lump on your chest, and you say, God, I swear that if this lump turns out to be nothing, then I'll give $500 to charity. Okay, right? We've all been in one situation in one way or another that mimics that. Okay, I'm not talking necessarily about a lump on one's chest, but whatever. You've been in trouble, and you make a vow. Okay, you say, please just get me out of this, and I promise I'll give $500 to charity or something like that. Okay, so you make this vow. Let's say you have this lump on your chest. You make this vow, okay, and then what do? And then it turns out everything's okay. And what happens? You go bring a diseased or an injured animal as a sacrifice. You didn't fulfill your vow properly. I get you out of your trouble. You didn't know. That could have been cancer. That could have been who knows what, right? And I got you out of it. You promised, you swore that if I got you out of that mess, you were going to come remember me. And yet now you bring me a sick animal. Now you bring me an injured animal. Let's get a Robert Alter on that one. Okay, and cursed be the schemer as a flock of sound males with pledges and sacrifices, a damaged one to the master. Ki melech gadol ani, because I'm a great king, Amar Yahweh Tzivaot, says Yahweh of hosts. Here we go. Or Yahweh of his armies, as I guess Robert Alter translates it as, right? The Lord of armies, Yahweh of his armies. Okay? Ushmi norah b'goyim, and my name is feared among all of the nations, among the nations. Again, this idea that Yahweh is known, he's feared, he's sacrificed to, his incense burned him, not just in his, but throughout all of the nations, right? The theme has come up now in two of these dialectics. So let's summarize here. Yahweh comes to Israel with a complaint. I'm your father. I'm your master. You're not giving me the proper honor as your father. You're not giving me the proper fear as your master. Israel responds, what do you mean? What are you talking about? How are we not giving you the proper honor? Okay, how have we disgraced? How have we defiled your name? How have we disgraced your name? And then Yahweh goes on to this long, through Malachi, goes on to this long speech, not so long, but goes on to this detailed speech about all of the things that the Kohanim are doing. You're bringing me these diseased, these lame, these blind sacrifices. Go bring that to your governor and see how he responds. And yet you expect me to give you favor? You expect me to do good things back for you when you're bringing me the worst? You're stealing them and you're bringing them to me? Nuh-uh, ain't gonna happen. Not up here. At any rate, so that's Yahweh's answer. And then Yahweh goes on to compare Israel's behavior with the behavior of the other nations. The other nations are bringing me good sacrifices, and you're bringing me stolen, blind, lame, sick, injured sacrifices. You're stealing. You have perfectly good animals, and you're stealing someone else's animal and bringing that to me as a fulfillment of your vows. I'm a great king. My name is known. From where the sun rises until the sun sets, my name is known. I'm respected. And here in my own house, with my own people, with my own Kohanim, my own priests, you're bringing me lame, sick, blind, stolen animals, and you ask, how are you defiling my name? That's my answer to you. I came to you, you're not giving me proper honor. You're not treating me like a father and a master. And you said, what do you mean we're not treating you like a father and a master? What are you talking about? Here's the answer. The other nations are showing me the proper honor, and you're not. My own Kohanim, my own children, my own firstborn of the firstborn, which is essentially what the Levites, what the Kohanim are, right? They're in place of the firstborn of Israel. So they're like the firstborn of the firstborn. And you're not showing me the proper honor. And that's the second dialectic. That's the second back and forth, the second conversation between Yahweh and Israel. I think we should stop there, even though the rest of Malachi, maybe we'll, oh, what did I do here? Oops. Okay, because then it goes on to some other topics. So maybe next week we'll continue with Malachi. But we see the brilliance of this short but very powerful book, and the rest of it is just as powerful in different ways. We see that Yahweh has actual complaints towards Israel. Misspellings, that's okay. Right? We see that Yahweh has actual complaints towards Israel. And Israel has doubts about Yahweh's love towards them. And it's solved, it's worked out in this dialectic, this back and forth through Malachi, through the prophet Malachi, whether that's his proper name or whether it just means my messenger. And we didn't get to the actual verse where the word Malachi is used, and it clearly means just my messenger, but maybe we'll get to it next time. Okay, but we see this brilliant and very powerful dialectic, this back and forth between Yahweh and Israel, in both of these cases. Okay, so any questions before we take a break, and then we'll go on to Leviticus chapter 23. Anybody? What does this do? Oh, let's see. Regular. Wide. Tall. We'll just do regular and medium. Good enough. Any questions? Any comments? Going once. And going twice. And going thrice. Okay, so we'll come back in about 10 minutes or so. Shabbat is over here in Israel. Wherever you are, it might still be Shabbat. So when we come back, we'll continue learning in the book of Leviticus, chapter 23. And I'll put on some music in the meantime. And we'll take it from there. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. This is Hakham Melech ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and we're going to continue with our study. We're going to be going now into Leviticus chapter 23. We'll be starting with verse 23, and I'm going to kind of skim through this to a certain degree for a number of reasons. Number one, I want to move on. I want to keep the pace moving. And number two, we've covered these things in a lot of other places. This is speaking about the holidays, and we've discussed as Karaites, we've discussed the holidays so many times and in so many different contexts that I don't want to get bogged down on it, although it's of course fascinating. I don't want to get too bogged down on it here. I want to move on to some other things, right? Because we know that the holidays are a big issue in Karaitism. We know that the differences in terms of the calendar, when they're declared, what their meanings are already well known, and we've discussed it in many times and in many other contexts with our studies. Hold on, let me just get some water. One second, please. Go. Okay, but at any rate, so we're going to be starting in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 23. And we're starting with the Feast of Trumpets, or the Feast of Noise Making, okay? And let's dig right in. Let me share the screen correctly. That should do it. And let's see what we got here. So we're in verse 23. Maybe I'll make this a little bit larger. Yeah. Okay, verse 23. Why yedaber Yahweh el Moshe lemor? So Yahweh spoke to Moses saying, Daber el bnei Israel, speak to the children of Israel lemor, to say, b'chodesh hashvi'i b'had lachodesh. So on the in the seventh month, on the first of the month, in other words, on the new moon of the seventh month, Yi'eh lochem Shabbaton zichron teruah mikra kodesh. It shall be for you a Shabbaton. It shall be a day on which you don't do work. Remember, we spoke about the difference between Shabbaton and Shabbat. Shabbat is an actual name of the seventh day of the week, and by extension, extended meaning, by analogous meaning, or by similar meaning, it extends to two other things, which are Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement, and what we'll get to in Leviticus chapter 25, the seventh year where the land lies fallow, the so-called Shemitah year. Okay, so here the word Shabbaton, which is an improper noun meaning a day which you refrain from work. Day. I won't say the day of rest because it's not the Shabbat, but it's a day of refraining from work. Zikaron Teruah. So this is something I've discussed in one of my articles on Karaite Insights. I will link the article. Literally what it means, Zikaron means a remembrance. And Teruah means through, alternatively, noise making, shouting. Here they call it trumpets, or perhaps shofar. Essentially, Teruah is making a ruckus, making a loud noise. But the context here is really, I believe, more either trumpets or shofar, actually. Because what we're doing, Zikaron Teruah, so we'll translate it as a day of remembrance, or Shabbaton, a day of refraining from work, a remembrance through shouting, let's go with. Okay, but not shouting necessarily with the voice. We can use trumpets. We can use the shofar, the ram's horn. The idea is, as I've detailed in the article, which I'll post in just a second, is that we call out to heaven, asking Yahweh to remember us. And this is what we do also with the two silver trumpets when we go out to war. It says explicitly that we use them to have Yahweh remember us. So the idea of shouting out to heaven, the idea of calling out to heaven, to calling out to Yahweh, is that he should remember us. Hello, Yahweh, we're here. We're calling out to you. Please remember us, help us, save us, think of us. Okay? That's the idea of a zikaron, a remembrance. And it's a mikra kodesh, a holy convocation, which we said is an absolutely horrible translation. It's a mikra, means a declaration, or perhaps a calling together, a declaration of a holy day, okay? In other words, it's a holiday. A holy day is a holiday, right? Let's get a little Robert Alter on this. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelites, saying, in the seventh month, on the first of the month, you shall have a Sabbath. I don't like that translation, but okay. A commemoration with horn blast, a sacred convocation. And he actually doesn't even have a commentary there. Commemoration with a horn blast. He does. Okay. Although the instrument used is not specified here, the reasonable assumption is that it is the ram's horn or shofar. The commemoration in question is the act of making God remember or take note of Israel through the ritual of horn blasts. Exactly. Exactly. This is why I like Robert Alter so much. He hits the nail right on the head. The commemoration in question is the act of making God remember or take note of Israel through the ritual of horn blasts. Some biblical scholars have detected a hint of an annual ceremony for the coronation of God. Now, enough. But the historical evidence for that vivid conjecture is scant. Okay, so let's go for a second. I'll go to my article. Yom Teruah. And it really sums up my thoughts right here. Maybe I'll read through a little bit. How do I make this larger? There we go. Okay. So let me just make sure you guys can all see. And I'll post the link as well. Let's get those comments back. And I'll post that comment. So there's the article if you want to go to it, or you could just go to karaiteinsights.com and you can look for the appropriate article. And let's just read through it a little bit. So Yom Teruah, it's actually a mistake. This I wrote a long time ago. I have to correct this. It's not Yom Teruah, it's Yom Teruah. That's okay. Yom Teruah falls on the first day, Rosh Chodesh of the seventh biblical month. It is translated alternatively as the day of shouting or the day of trumpets. The rabbis call it Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, though this interpretation has no support whatsoever in the Tanakh. Yom Teruah is mentioned only twice in the Torah. In Leviticus 23:24, we read, "Speak to the children of Israel and say, in the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, shall be for you a day of rest, a remembrance through noise making, Zikaron Teruah, a holy convocation." Yom Teruah is mentioned once again and for the last time in Numbers chapter 29, verse 1. So what is this elusive holiday mentioned only twice throughout the Torah and so unclear that the rabbis felt compelled to give it the extra and incorrect meaning of the Jewish New Year? Right, we have to point this out, that the rabbis didn't know what to do with this holiday. Because what do you do on this holiday? You shout out to heaven and you bring sacrifices. Rabbis had no idea what to do with this, so they made up this fake idea of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the New Year, the Happy New Year. If you're in Israel or in any Jewish community around the world, and the 7th month comes in September usually, people go around saying Shana Tova, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. That's not the Happy New Year. The New Year is explicit in Exodus chapter 12, verse 2, that the month of the Aviv is the beginning of the months. The Jewish New Year, the Israelite New Year, the Torah New Year starts in the spring, not in the fall. The key to understanding Yom, and I have to change all of these Yom Teruah to Yom Teruah, excuse me for that mistake. Like I said, I wrote this article a long time ago, decades ago. The key to understanding Yom Teruah is to understand the full implication of two words which occur in Leviticus 23. Remembrance, zikaron, and noise-making teruah. That's what we see right here. Zikaron, teruah. The concept of teruah, or noise-making, is found many times throughout the Tanakh, and is not necessarily... Smaller? Oh boy. What is it? Okay. And it's not necessarily connected to the making of noise on a shofar, an animal horn, meaning a bull's horn, a ram's horn, I'm sorry. In Numbers 10:5, it's a little bit larger. Come on, work with me, Chrome. In Numbers 10:5, we see that the teruah is a loud blast on silver trumpets used to signal the movement of camps of Israel in the desert. Likewise, in Numbers 10:9, we see that Israel is commanded to make a loud blast on the silver trumpets when going out to war. And you shall be remembered before Yahweh, Yahweh, your God, and save from your enemies, right? So we have two examples. Okay, there's a loud blast on the silver trumpets that's in Numbers 10:5. We won't check it out right now. And in Numbers 10:9, when you go out to war, so the silver trumpets are used basically to these are times of danger. When the camp of Israel in the desert was moving, that's a time of danger, right? You're leaving your camp and you're going out into the wilderness. Who knows what could be waiting out there, right? Who knows what evil people could be waiting, evil nations could be waiting to attack you. It's almost like going out to war, right? May your enemies be dispersed, is what was said when the camps would move. So this calling out, this blast on the silver trumpets, calling out to Yahweh, calling out to heaven, was basically in this time of danger, protect us, Yahweh. We're moving out from our camp. We're moving our camp. We're going out into new places, and we need your help. We need your protection. And the same in Numbers 10:9 when you go out to war. Also, the silver trumpets, there was a blast to heaven. You shall be remembered before Yahweh your God and saved from your enemies. So we see exactly what this teruah. Okay? And that same word is used, teruah, in both those cases. So we see what a teruah does in these two contexts. They're calling out to heaven to protect us. We're calling out to Yahweh so that he should protect us in times of danger. Okay, and we actually have here, and you shall be remembered. Maybe it is worth going to Numbers 10 for a second. Let me do that. Let me go to Numbers 10 for 1 second here. Excuse me. And let's get the Hebrew too. Just checking for comments. Okay, so just very briefly, let me just to make it move quickly, I'll read part of it in the English. So Yahweh said to Moses, make 2 trumpets of hammered silver and use them for calling the community together and having the camp set out. When both are sounded, the whole community is to assemble before you at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Okay? If only one is sounded, the leaders, okay, we can skip here. When a trumpet blast is sounded, the tribes are camping on the east are to set out. At the sounding of a second blast, the camps on the south are to set out, and so on. The sons of Aaron, the priests, are to blow the trumpets. This is to be a lasting ordinance for you and the generations to come. When you go into battle in your own land against an enemy who's oppressing you, sound a blast on the trumpets. Then you will be remembered by Yahweh your God and rescued from your enemies. Also, at your times of rejoicing, your appointed festivals and new feasts, you are to sound the trumpets over your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, and they will be memorial for you before your God. I'm the Lord your God. Let's look at this in the Hebrew, starting in verse 9. And we're going to see a couple of very interesting things, okay? So verse 9. So when you go out to war in your land against the enemy that is oppressing you or that is making trouble for you, this is the key phrase right here. You shall make a blast on the trumpets. Now, I have to pick this apart a little bit for those of you who are not fluent in biblical Hebrew, but this is exactly the same 2 roots. This word here, hareotem v'niskartem, these are exactly the same 2 roots, and you can hear the similarities. Zikaron teruah, okay? Hareotem teruah, niskartem zikaron. I'm going to say it one more time, okay? Oops. Hareotem. So we see here the resh and the ayin, hareotem, okay? And here we see teruah. It's the same root. It means making noise, okay? And here we have, in Numbers 10, we have v'chatzatzorot v'niskartem, and you shall be remembered before Yahweh, niskartem. And here in Leviticus 23, we have zikaron, niskartem, zayin, chaf, resh, zachar, zechar. And here we have the same thing in Numbers 10, niskartem, zayin, chet, resh, niskartem, zikaron. It's the same idea here, okay? So zikaron teruah, a remembrance through blasts on an instrument or through noise making. And here we have, you shall make noise on your trumpets, or you shall blast upon your trumpets, and you shall be remembered before Yahweh. It's the same thing. This is the same roots as zikaron teruah. Okay? Elohechem, so you should be remembered before Yahweh your God, and you should be rescued, or you shall gain salvation. You should be rescued before or from your enemies. Okay, so we see very clearly that in Numbers chapter 10, verse 9, we see that by making noise, by blasting on the trumpets, we are remembered before Yahweh, and we're saved from our enemies. And that gives a lot of context into what we see here, that the first day of the 7th month is a zikaron teruah. It's being remembered through blasting on the trumpets, or perhaps blasting on the shofar, or just making noise in general. I think it has to do with either shofar or even perhaps the trumpets. Okay, and then in Numbers 10, we see that this also applies to days such as our Rosh Chodesh and holidays, etc. We blast on the trumpets. Why? These are happy days, so we want Yahweh to remember us on those happy days as well. Not only when we're in trouble, but on those happy days as well. Like, look down. We're celebrating you. We're celebrating your bounty. Please remember us for good, not only in the times of our distress. Okay? So I go back to here, to the article. Okay? Notice something very interesting about the above verse. By making a loud blast, and this is talking about Leviticus 23. No, I'm sorry. This is talking about Numbers 10. By making a loud blast teruah on the silver trumpets, we remember before Yahweh. And as we saw above in Leviticus 23:24, Yom Teruah is also called a remembrance through noise making. Therefore, Leviticus 10:9 is the second time we see in the Torah that we see connection between noise making, Teruah, and remembrance zikaron. That's what we just said, right? We will return to this very important point below, but let us first explore more uses of the word teruah or teruah in the Tanakh. Perhaps one of the most famous uses of the word teruah comes from the story of Yoshua, Joshua, and the walls of Jericho. After an elaborate 6-day ritual in which the Kohanim, the priests, circled the walls with the Ark of the Covenant, blasting on the shofar, and the people joined them but remained silent. That's for 6 days. On the 7th day, the Kohanim circled the walls 6 times, and then on the 7th time, quote, the people shouted, and the Kohanim blew the shofars. When the people heard the sound of the shofars, they shouted a great shout with their voices. In other words, ah! And the wall came tumbling down, and the people went up into the city, right? And the walls came tumbling down. Okay, so the walls of Jericho were brought down with a teruah gdolah. They were brought down with great noise making, with the shofars, with the people shouting. Okay, that's how the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. Other places where teruah appears are in 1 Samuel 4:5. The Ark of the Covenant is brought out to battle against the Philistines, accompanied by a great sound from the people. The Ark is then captured by the Philistines, etc. In 2 Samuel 6:15, King David and the entire house of Israel bring the Ark up to the city of David, Jerusalem, with shouting, teruah, and the sound of the shofar. So we've seen 3 examples of teruah so far. We've seen shouting with voices. We've seen the shofar, which is the ram's horn. And we have seen the silver trumpets. Okay, so it's possible that any or all of those are what are done on Zikaron Teruah, done on Yom Teruah, the first day of the 7th month. Maybe it's a combination. Maybe the priests blast on the silver trumpets, and maybe some people blast on the shofar, and the rest of the people who don't have shofars or silver trumpets, maybe they shout, just like happened around the walls of Jericho on the 7th day. Psalm 81:2 says, "Sing to the God of our strength." Shout, hariu, from the same word as Torah, unto the God of Jacob. So that's Psalm 81:2 tells us to shout out to give a shout out to the God of Jacob. In Psalm 101 we read, "Shout, hariu, unto Yahweh, all the earth." In summary, we can conclude that the word Torah means making of loud noises, either by shouting or on a musical instrument such as a shofar or a trumpet. So that's the analysis of the word Torah. Right? Let me just check in here and see if there are any questions or comments. Now let's talk about the word zikaron, because in Leviticus 23:24 we see these 2 words together, zikaron teruah, just as we did in Numbers 10, verse 9, right? Okay, teruah here, zikaron here, same idea. Okay, so now let's examine a bit about this idea of zikaron, remembrance. The second key word for us to understand in piecing together the puzzle of Yom Teruah is zikaron, or remembrance, since the holiday is called zikaron teruah, remembrance through noise making, in Leviticus 23:24. Why is the holiday called a remembrance? Is it a remembrance of some event, just as Hakham Melech, the festival of unleavened bread, is a remembrance of our exodus from Egypt? Or are we supposed to remember something? And if so, what? As it turns out, it is neither. Rather, what we're doing on Yom Teruah is asking Yahweh to remember us. And we accomplish this by getting his attention through shouting out to him, whether on the official silver trumpets of the priests, on animal horns, with our own voices, or by any other means at our disposal. The idea of being remembered by Yahweh can be seen extensively throughout the Torah, and a couple of examples will help us put this into focus. In Genesis 8, after Noah has been floating in the ark for 150 days, the Torah says, "And Yahweh remembered Noah and all the wild and domesticated animals which were with him in the ark, and Yahweh caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters diminished." Right? He remembered Noah. He remembered the animals. Had Yahweh really forgotten about Noah? Was he too busy playing pinochle with the angels? That was me being cute when I was back in my 20s. No, of course not. Rather, the word remembrance, when applied to Yahweh, implies the deliberate turning of Yahweh's attention towards a particular individual or group at a certain point in time, often in order to pay him back for some good or bad that he's done in the past. In this case, Yahweh is turning his attention towards Noah and remembering him for the fact that he was, quote, righteous in his generation. That's in Genesis 6:9. Likewise, in Genesis 19:29, when Yahweh destroys Sodom and Gomorrah, he remembers Abraham and therefore saves his nephew Lot. As it says, and Yahweh remembered Abraham and sent Lot out from the destruction when he overturned the cities in which Lot dwelled. In Genesis 30:22, Yahweh remembers the barren Rachel and provides her with her first son Joseph. And Yahweh remembered Rachel and hearkened to her and opened her womb. In Exodus 2:24, Yahweh remembers, i.e., turns his attention to the covenant with our. We just read this in the synagogues today. It's the beginning of the book of Exodus, and begins the process by which ultimately our people are freed from slavery in Egypt. And Yahweh heard the children of Israel's groaning. Yahweh remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And Yahweh took notice of the children of Israel, and Yahweh knew. So we see that gaining the attention or remembrance of Yahweh is a common concept in the Tanakh. And we saw earlier in Numbers 10:9 that one of the ways to gain his remembrance is by making loud noise, teruah, i.e. calling out to him. But why do we need to gain Yahweh's remembrance specifically on the first day of the 7th biblical month? So we'll read the rest of the articles. We're already close to the end. Let's check in for any comments. Any comments, any questions? Anybody? Okay, then let's go on. Tying it all together, the case of the half shekel. In Exodus 30:11-16, Moses is commanded to collect a half shekel of silver from every Israelite who's counted during the census. And whenever I mention the half shekel, I have to mention my dear friend who is deceased now for about 4 years or something like that, Reuven Prager, who one of his life missions was to restore the half shekel. And Reuven was a very interesting and dedicated and good guy. So shout out to Reuven up in heaven, or wherever you are. I don't know if, heaven is not really a Jewish concept. So sleeping, resting, waiting for the day of the Lord, the day of Yahweh. So everyone who passes through the census shall give a half shekel according to the shekel of the sanctuary, 20 gerahs and a shekel. A half shekel is a donation to Yahweh. This is in Exodus chapter 30, verse 13. What is the purpose of the collection of the half shekel, of this half shekel? Verses 16-17 tells explicitly, and you'll take this money of atonement, kippurim, from the children of Israel. So when the children of Israel commanded each of them to give a half shekel, it's called the money of atonement, kippurim. Does that sound like anything? How about Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement, which is coming up 10 days, or 9 days after Yom Teruah? Okay? And it shall be for the children of Israel's remembrance, zikaron before Yahweh, to atone for your souls. Here we have the word zikaron again. This time zikaron is being paired with kippurim. Wow. Right? We've got the same idea again. Zikaron, this time being paired with kippurim. Before we had zikaron being paired with teruah. So this giving, let me let the article speak for itself. So by giving the half shekel during a census count, we are remembered. We're asking for remembrance for Yahweh. And when he remembers us, he grants us atonement. Why we need atonement for our souls during a census count is a story in and of itself. But suffice it to say that throughout the Tanakh, taking the census is closely associated with going out to war, a time of high danger when it is best that our souls be clear of any negative karma. Okay. The key point here is that Yahweh's remembrance of us leads to his granting us atonement. And we saw earlier, shouting out to Yahweh leads to his remembrance of us. So tying it all together, we have the following equation. Teruah, noise making, leads to zikaron, remembrance, which leads to kippur, atonement. There it is. That's the whole thing. Teruah, zikaron. That's why zikaron teruah, the first day of the 7th month. Yom Kippurim, the 10th day of the 7th month. Yom Teruah, in context. One of the fundamental tenets of Karaite analysis of the Torah is contextual analysis. I have to say, I haven't read this article in a while, and I wrote it decades ago, and am I allowed to say I'm impressed with myself? That sounds kind of arrogant. I like this article a lot, let's put it this way, and I haven't read it in a while. One of the fundamental tenets of Karaite analysis of the Torah is contextual analysis. Nothing's meant to or can be understood in a vacuum, just as this applies with words and verses in the text itself so applies to all aspects of the Torah. If we properly place the holiday of Yom Teruah in context, we see that it too does not occur in a vacuum. Rather, it is followed 10 days later by Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonement. This explains why we are calling out to Yahweh to remember us on Yom Teruah, in order that he may grant us atonement 10 days later on Yom HaKippurim. Also, Yom Teruah does not fall on just any day of the month. It falls on the first day of the month and is the only holiday throughout the biblical year to do so. Thus, we may think of Yom Teruah as the opening ceremony of a very important month in the biblical year, the seventh month, which begins with the shouting to the heavens or for remembrance from Yahweh, from Yahweh on Yom Teruah, reaches its climax when Yahweh hopefully grants atonement for our souls on Yom Kippurim, and then, after atonement has been granted, culminates with a 7-day harvest celebration of Sukkot, and lastly ends with one final day of contemplation and celebration to close out the month, the closing ceremony of the 7th month, Shmini Atzeret. With that in mind, I wish all the house of Israel and the people throughout the world the 7th month filled with happiness, atonement, joy, celebration, and connection to Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth. Okay. Okay. Let's see if there are any interesting comments here. Okay, there we go. I can't believe this HTML still works. It's ancient HTML. You guys know what HTML is? It's the language in which you write websites, but apparently it's still working. All right, so that kind of sums up, I would say, Yom Teruah. Any questions, any comments? If not, let's see, should we stop here or should we go? It's getting kind of late. I really do want to finish and go on to the next chapter already. And we're getting bogged down in Leviticus 23. Yeah, but I know myself, I'm not going to be able to do it. So I think that we're going to stop here. And we could pick it up next week, or let's see, should we go a little bit longer? We've been going since like 5 o'clock. It's 7:30 Israel time. I'm tired. I'm going to stop here, I think. I'm tired. Okay, let's open it up to any questions or comments before we go about anything. Does anyone, we'll call it, open mic night here or just open discussion. Does anyone have any questions or comments about anything before we close it up for today? Anybody? No? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? Okay, if not, I guess we're going to end today's study. We'll put on some music. And we will say goodbye. Let's see what the song is. Okay, so let me just say goodbye then. Once again, this is Melech Rahmiel, Hakham Melech Rahmiel of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and thank you for joining us. And please follow the links to become part of our community, support our community, to get involved in our community. If you're in the land of Israel, you live in Israel, or if you want to come to Israel, please come join us in the Golan Heights, where we're starting our World Alliance of Qara'im actual Karaite community, living on the land here, beautiful, most beautiful areas in the land of Israel. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Thanks for joining us. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and a Shabbat Tov, happy Sabbath, and a good week. And Bezrat Yahweh, with the help of Yahweh, we will see you once again next week. Thank you.